From the Detroit Free Press, I'm Robin Chan with today's voice briefing. It's Monday, December 25th, 2023.
I'm Sue Salaski, Detroit Free Press food writer. Seasoned cooks and those who navigate the kitchen well pull out all the stops for holiday meals and gatherings. Savvy cooks will tell you that having a breakfast casserole ready to pop in the oven on Christmas morning is one of the best, easiest, and mostly effortless options. Casseroles are huge time savers. Place everything in one dish, bake, and presto, you have one comforting, tasty dish that is easy to make. During hectic holiday times, it is wise to rely on these dishes even more. Breakfast casseroles are ideal because you make them in advance and they're usually enough to feed a crowd. They are also perfect for overnight guests or as a brunch table option. Breakfast casseroles are everything you might eat at breakfast, from eggs to sausage to potatoes and eggs, all tossed together and cooked in one dish. The casserole is assembled the night before and sits in the refrigerator overnight, allowing the bread to soak up the liquid. The next day, pop it in the oven and bake until puffy and set. For ideas, basic guidelines, and recipes for putting together breakfast casseroles, go to freep.com.
For the Detroit Free Press, I'm Keith Matheny. It was late December 2019, 4 years ago, when motorists along I-696 near Madison Heights were startled to see an almost day-glow green ooze emanating from a retaining wall and pooling on the highway. The ooze, containing potentially health-harming chromium-6 and other contaminants, was coming from a troubled chrome plating facility above the highway, Electroplating Services, that had been shut down years earlier for the haphazard way it was storing and disposing of harmful chemicals. The US EPA had cleaned up the most urgent mess at the property and handed jurisdiction over to state regulators, with the knowledge that contamination still existed in the soils on the property. But because no public water supplies were impacted, and the thought was that the contamination wasn't migrating, further cleanup there wasn't high on the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy's priority lists. Then came the green ooze on I-696. 4 years later, that cleanup still isn't complete, but a finish line is well in sight. Eagle officials said they expect to have contaminated soil treatment and removal completed in the first quarter of 2024, and the site will have ongoing monitoring thereafter.
This is Phoebe Wall-Howard, an automotive reporter at the Detroit Free Press. Ford Motor Company says half of its car dealers are waiting to opt in on electric vehicle sales and service in 2024. Some 1,500 dealers have chosen to stick with selling just hybrid and internal combustion engine vehicles. They're waiting to decide whether to make the investments needed to sell and service electric vehicles. This rate has declined over the past year. Ford had more commitments for this electric vehicle adoption as the market has fluctuated. Go to freep.com for more detail.
I'm Andrew Burkle with the Free Press Sports Department. And ladies and gentlemen, your Detroit Lions are the NFC North champions. It wasn't easy and you knew it couldn't be. We're talking about the Lions after all. But when push came to shove, with the division title on the line against the Minnesota Vikings, the Lions came through. Under the leadership of Dan Campbell, that's starting to become more of a habit. The Lions game against the Vikings on Sunday was an absolute roller coaster. But every single week there are crazy games in the NFL. This win was all about the history behind it. The Lions' win on Sunday helped them clinch their first division title in 30 years. It was actually the very first time they've ever won the NFC North, and that's because it used to be the NFC Central back when the Lions last won it. Only 6 players on the Lions' active roster and practice squad were even alive the last time the Lions won the division back in 1993. But still, you could tell the players felt the weight of this accomplishment. As the Lions were taking knees to end the game, an emotional Taylor Decker embraced Lions quarterback Jared Goff. If there's anyone on this team who understands what it means, it's Decker. He's been with the team since 2016. He's seen the lows, he's felt the lows, and he actually knows what it means to finally get it done in Detroit. So what does it mean going forward? The Lions will now host a playoff game at Ford Field for the very first time. The loyal fans who have been grinding it out, showing up year in and year out, now get to see their team shine on the biggest stage in Detroit. Who they'll play and how many home games they could potentially have is still to be determined. But make no mistake, this is a huge deal. Dan Campbell promised they would reinvent the Lions franchise when he first arrived. He talked about everything the Lions fans have been through and how he's going to help change things. There are still many goals ahead, and it starts next week against Dallas Cowboys. But let's not lose sight of this accomplishment and what it means for the Lions franchise and its fan base.
Find more from the Detroit Free Press on Freep.com. That's FREEP.com. Thanks for listening, and you'll hear more from us tomorrow.